Hello, my Bill for Thousand Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. All right, we are back with another Lazy Masquerade. This one is titled Three Unsolved Mysteries That Will Make Your Blood Boil. Now, after yesterday's video with Mr. Ballin, whew, it ain't gonna take much to get my blood boiling today. That video was awful. If you ain't watched it, don't. I was so angry by the time it was over. Moments. You know what I mean? Alright. I'm excited. I'm ready to get into this story. So go ahead, turn the mic down low, put on something comfy, couple, something special. Let's get our blood a boiling. Yeah. Alright. Let's get into it. I'm excited. I've never done a 3 unsolved mysteries from Lazy Masquerade. I want to see what it's like. Compare and contrast. Yeah.
Today's video is sponsored by Raycon, my go-to.
Raycon. Never was much of a fan of Raycons. I've had several pair and they've all went to on me. I don't know why. I don't know.
In January of 1968, a 21-year-old single mother named Sandra Jackson was living with her 5-month-old daughter, Kimberly, in the small northern English town of Norton. One evening, as Sandra waited for her daughter's bathwater to cool, she began warming up a bottle of milk in her apartment's kitchen. All the while, little Kimberly played in her stroller in the back garden. Her stroller was fitted with a set of wooden rattles that would keep her entertained while Sandra fulfilled her motherly duties.
Yeah.
The layout of the home was such that she could keep an eye on Kimberly if the kitchen's rear door remained open. At some point, Sandra wandered into one of the home's front rooms, and, through the large bay windows, she spotted a young man pushing what appeared to be the exact same model of stroller as the one that Kimberly was in. Sandra observed the young boy with a kind of casual curiosity, noting that the stroller he was pushing lacked the kind of wooden rattles that she had attached to her own. Therefore, in her mind, it couldn't have possibly been the same stroller that her daughter was in. Yet, as she walked back into the kitchen and looked out of
Oh no! Little son bitch.
the open rear door, she began to panic. Little Kimberly was gone.
That motherfucker.
It was then that Sandra realized with abject horror that she hadn't observed a young man pushing a similar-looking stroller, but had actually unknowingly witnessed the kidnap of her own infant daughter. After contacting the local authorities, an intensive search of the surrounding area commenced, with one officer searching an area called Billingham Bottoms. Billingham Bottoms was a popular fishing spot, consisting of a medium-sized lake, along with several smaller ponds. It was as the officer walked among them that he spotted something which sent a chill down his spine. Floating face down and lifeless in one of the smaller ponds was baby Kimberly. The callous murder of this infant girl caused a storm of public outrage, and the local police force sought to catch Kimberly's killer as quickly as possible. Investigators discovered that Sandra's back garden was accessible via a short alleyway that lacked any kind of fence or gate. That meant that just about anyone could have crept down there and taken Kimberly unopposed. However, detectives also noted that the garden wasn't visible from the main street. That meant that Kimberly's killer had either spontaneously walked down that alleyway, saw her in the stroller alone, and that this was a crime of opportunity,
Or someone knew.
or
someone knew the baby was there, knew the layout. Man, no. Don't let it be someone that they knew. No, wait a minute. We ain't gonna know. We'll never know. Unsolved mysteries, I make it son of a bitch. Now my blood's boiling. Motherfucker.
more chillingly, they'd been able to look into the garden from a nearby vantage point, and had been watching Kimberly for quite some time. When interviewed by the police, a grieving Sandra described her daughter's kidnapper as being about 5 feet tall and between the ages of 12 and 14 years old. He had an average build, a mess of dark, bushy hair.
So a little piece of shit kid. Oh, little motherfucker.
And had been wearing a green anorak at the time of the kidnapping.
Anorak.
Sandra claimed to have had no idea
I don't know what anorak is. Is it like a hoodie or a jacket of some sort?
who the boy was, or why he may have targeted her daughter. Based on Sandra's description of the boy, a sketch artist scribbled a rough image of him, and copies were distributed.
That's creepy, though. I mean, look at that face. Do you see that face? Do you see that face? Do you see his face? That's fucking creepy. I'd call 911 just for the face, just in general. Be like, you creepy son of a bitch.
Door to door, in hopes that somebody might recognize him. The police also accompanied a heartbroken Sandra on a tour of 19 local schools, the goal of which was to identify one of the students as her daughter's killer. Yet even with such an extensive investigation, the police failed to find their perp. For some, the idea that such a young person could commit such a heinous act was almost too horrible to consider. Cynics began to speculate that Sandra was trying.
Well, what if the kid... What if they wasn't from around there? What if there was like... travel, migrant, living people, you know? And it wasn't from around there because, oh, what was that on? TV show on like History Channel, A&E, whatever it is, but they would show how like these bands of people would come together and like teach their kids how to rob, steal, lie, cheat, kidnap other kids, stuff like that, and they would use them to lure other kids to them that way. And I mean, ain't like they was doing it to sell the kids, it was just to make their population bigger. Maybe it was something like that. Maybe potentially.
To cover up the fact that she had been the one to drown her own daughter. Her failure to identify the boy that she had witnessed was because he didn't exist. For the most part, the level of grief and guilt that Sandra displayed convinced most people of her innocence, and this belief was further cemented in the years that followed, when Sandra would push for multiple re-examinations of her daughter's case. At the time, much of the public and investigative discourse surrounded the killer's potential motive. Coming up with a reason why a young man might take an infant's life in such a way was as morose as it was difficult. But what if Kimberly's killer hadn't acted maliciously as some people had assumed? The police began to explore the idea that Kimberly's killer may have had some sort of learning difficulty, that he had been wandering around the neighborhood, spotted Kimberly, and then decided to take her on a walk down to Billingham Bottoms. While showing Kimberly the ponds where the tadpoles grew, the boy may have accidentally dropped her in the water, panicked, and then run off without realizing the severity of his actions. It was a plausible theory, but it was one that was ruled out by the fact that Kimberly's kidnapper had removed the wooden rattles from her stroller.
Yeah.
Without those rattles.
Yeah, okay. I remember that. I mean, they had a point. I mean, it could have been some kid that was like, oh, baby, and, you know, maybe had a learning disability or something, and this wasn't... Shit happens. I'm not saying it could, and I'm not saying it could. I'm just saying shit does happen. But to be smart enough to remove any identifying features off of it before strolling it down, that's intelligent. I'm sorry. I don't go. You can't try to say it was some poor kid with a learning disability that was just trying to take a baby for a walk. No, no, no.
Her stroller would make less noise and would be less recognizable to anyone who spotted him. The fact that the killer had taken the time to remove them meant that this was no accident.
No.
A huge amount of time and effort was thrown into the hunt for Kimberly's killer, but sadly, they were never identified, and the case eventually turned cold. For the past 36 years, the case has remained unsolved. In 2004, an elderly Sandra Jackson once again called for Kimberly's case to be revisited by Cleveland police. "The killer's fingerprints should have been all over the stroller," she said. "I want to know if any were kept, and if the case can be looked at again. I was young at the time, and so naive, and didn't understand investigations, but things have come on so far since then." With each passing year, the memories of Kimberly Jackson's murder fade ever more into the past. Yet, despite the fact that some refuse to forget her, one person in particular must be unable to escape the memories of their own horrific actions. Perhaps they feel remorse and have long suffered in their silent guilt. But maybe, just maybe, they look back on that memory of drowning little Kimberly, and they smile.
Man, he took us to a dark place there, didn't he? Fuck. Maybe he did. Oh, why did I do that? Maybe it's just because.
On the morning of February 23rd, 1987, 23-year-old Jay Potter Mintz received a phone call from her mother. Jay was living with her infant son in Leland, North Carolina, having recently separated from her husband, who was stationed with the US military in Germany. To support herself, Jay got a job as a waitress at a restaurant in nearby Wilmington, and had just started dating again. Since the following day would mark her son's second birthday, Jay was busy preparing a small party for him. It had been a busy morning too, as just an hour earlier, she had sold a waterbed to a man who had spotted her advertisement in a local paper. Due to an unfortunate miscomputation, Jay's mother had actually promised the waterbed to another buyer, but after failing to make a note of the buyer's phone number, she was unable to call him back to cancel the sale. Thing is, her mother had already given the man directions to Jay's house. Jay assured her mother that she had diffused the situation with a polite apology. Suitably reassured, Jay's mother Lorraine ended the call, unaware that it would be the last time she would ever talk to her daughter.
Over a fucking
Later that
waterbed?
day, Lorraine once again tried to call her daughter to confirm that the sale was successful, but this time, Jay didn't answer the phone. After becoming increasingly concerned, Lorraine drove over to Jay's house to make sure she was okay.
Oh.
When she arrived, she could immediately tell something was horribly wrong. The door to Jay's house was wide open. After Lorraine walked inside, she heard the sound of Jay's 2-year-old son screaming at the top of his lungs. After a brief search of the home, Lorraine burst into an upstairs bedroom and was greeted by a sight that would haunt her for the rest of her life.
No.
The sight of Jay lying on a blood-soaked mattress. Her throat had been slit, and her torso was a mess of multiple stab wounds. Lorraine found her 2-year-old grandson alive and well in another room. She asked if he was okay.
That baby was right there the whole fucking time. What the fuck?
And he simply replied, "Mean man hurt mummy. Mummy, cry." Jay's murder sent shockwaves throughout the small town of Leland. The public heard how a newspaper clipping of Jay's waterbed ad had been found left behind at the scene, seemingly confirming that she had been murdered by a prospective buyer. Jay's 63-year-old mother Lorraine was so grief-stricken that she passed away from a heart attack just a few months after local media revisited the case in 2007. It was said that she felt such a soul-crushing guilt that she had provided her daughter's killer with her address, that the stress literally killed her. "She lived with so much pain and guilt for the rest of her life," said Lorraine's surviving daughter, Jill Watts. "Her heart was broken. She always said if she had arrived earlier, maybe she could have deterred the killer. She thought maybe things would have turned out differently." Jill had been driving over to Jay's from her home in Colorado on the day of the slaying, and didn't receive the bad news until she arrived. "It was devastating," she later said. "One day we're planning a birthday party, and the next, she's just gone. We had plans. She had a life to live. It's been a nightmare ever since. Jay was kind-hearted and a good person and loved her kids. I can't think of anyone who didn't like her. Why someone would want to do this to her is unimaginable. During the course of their investigation,
Please tell me it wasn't over a motherfucking waterbed, because I swear on everything freaking holy, if this poor lady was murdered with her poor little baby, this is like right in the same fucking house. It don't fucking matter. I don't give a damn. In the same house. It was right there. If it happened over waterbed, I swear on everything holy.
homicide detectives questioned a cousin of Jay's named Angela. Angela had been living with Jay in the months preceding her murder. Interestingly, she told detectives that Jay had been receiving a large amount of unwanted attention over the previous few months, and that she believed at least 2 or 3 men had been bothering her. Angela claimed that one of the men would rake out the words, "I love you, Jay," in the gravel driveway of her cousin's home. Another used to bombard her with red roses, and even arrived unannounced at her workplace in attempts to romance her.
Fuck that.
Angela was quick to add that Jay politely but firmly rejected her potential suitors, but there were a handful that just couldn't seem to let go. Angela also noted that Jay seemed to receive some deeply disturbing phone calls too. On one occasion, when Angela answered Jay's phone, she heard a gruff voice on the other end of the line, growling obscenities and threats of violence. Then, just a week before the murder, Angela heard a soft sobbing come.
That don't sound like love. That sounds like not love. I think you're gonna stalk someone you love and make it to where they're crying and miserable. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my freaking life. I love you so much, I'm going to stalk you until you're crying in the bathroom floor, rocking back and forth, wanting it to end. That's dumb. Don't do that shit. The fuck?
From Jay's room. She walked inside, only to find Jay curled up on the bed, quietly weeping. When Angela asked her what was wrong, Jay replied that she had just woken up from a dream in which a man was trying to kill her. After it happened, I couldn't shake what she said, Angela told a journalist back in 1997. It's like she knew what was about to happen. After a failure to identify any potential suspects caused the investigation to stall, a diversion of resources further impeded the hunt for Jay's killer.
What if she did? I mean, I'm not saying I believe in guardian angels. I'm not saying I don't. Like I say in all the videos, I believe that if you believe in it enough, it's real. You know what I mean? Don't look too far into it. It will make your brain hurt. It's okay. But what if something was trying to warn her? A ghost, a spirit of a loved one, a guardian angel, call whatever you want to call it. It don't matter to me. But what if something was trying to warn her and was trying to show her this to, scare her enough to maybe potentially do something about it? You ever wonder, like, oh, I had this weird dream, and then, something happens and you're like, oh man, I had this dream one time, and it was like, nah, I'm good. What if you don't do that? What if you just say, if you know what, fuck it, let's go. Would it still play out that way? I don't want to know. I don't want to find out. I'll end up at school, butt ass naked. It's cold. There's a draft that someone left the freaking window. Don't.
And it wasn't long before the case went cold. Even after 29 years, the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office still actively worked to solve Jay's case. In 2016, an officer by the name of Lieutenant Israel West was placed in charge of the investigation. During a press conference, he said that a number of different suspects had been questioned over the years. "We don't consider Jay's case a cold case. It's just unsolved," said Lieutenant West. "I put as much energy and care into her case as I would want if it were me or someone I loved." Lieutenant West also stated that the future of the case rested on any potential DNA evidence recovered from the scene, and that the sheriff's office were waiting on the results of an advanced DNA recovery procedure that might shed some light on the killer's identity. Perhaps the detail which has most baffled investigators over the years is how Jay's killer was able to get inside and out of her home without anyone noticing him.
Yeah.
Jay's house was situated on a very busy main road, in a neighborhood where people regularly walked or cycled through the streets. It all seemed very calculated, a family member later said.
Not to mention, the little boy said, the bad man. Like, if it was someone he had seen before, he might know by a different name, The guy that mommy talked about, or the guy that mommy says stay away from, I don't think he'd ever seen the guy before. But, I mean, if this come to her work and stuff, he probably wouldn't.
Almost like the guy really
I just don't want to be murdered over a fucking waterbed, okay? I'm reaching here, bud.
knew what he was doing, But the thing I fear the most is that whoever killed Jay has gone on to kill other women over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows how many more times this has happened, and the guy's just gotten away with it. It's that final sentiment.
I mean, I'm pretty sure waterbed sales are way, way down. I don't even think they make them no more, do they? Because of all the murders.
That seems to be the most terrifying. When a killer goes uncaught, injustice is just the first of many poisonous effects. And an even greater toxin is the threat to those ignorant of their peers' mortal sins, making us all ripe targets to be their next innocent victim.
Yeah, right? Case 3. No, those trace!
On the afternoon of September 10th, 2021, Virginia-based newlyweds Corina Solorzano and Jason Cortez were making their way down a popular trail in Los Angeles' Ernest E. Debs Regional Park. 29-year-old Jason was from Silver Springs, Maryland. He attended Potomac Senior High School, and, following his graduation, went on to receive a Bachelor of Arts in Film and Video Studies at George Mason University. Jason was heavily involved in student organizations, and was an early member of the Iota chapter of Delta Kappa Alpha, a cinematic professional fraternity. This is where he first discovered a passion for screenwriting, movie directing, and, above all, photography. On that fateful day in September, Jason was visiting Los Angeles to photograph Debs Park as part of a lucrative photography project. Having tied the knot just a year before, he and Corina were very much in love, and they were looking forward to spending their first holiday season together in their new home that they had purchased back in Virginia. Yet little did they know that they were about to be visited by a chilling and senseless tragedy. A fellow hiker happened across the stricken couple and managed to keep some pressure on Jason's wound. Yet despite the speedy arrival of paramedics, Jason sadly passed away while en route to the hospital. Jason was not only my husband, but he was also my loyal friend, Corina told a press conference the following week. This will be the first holiday season I'll celebrate without him in 7 years, and his family and I are desperate for answers. We need to know who did this and why. We need to understand what happened. We need help. During that press conference, a $50,000 award was offered for any information which might lead to the capture of Jason's killer. It was also revealed that the bullet that had killed Jason had been fired from as close as 100 yards away. A wanted poster was circulated around neighboring states.
So someone literally was aiming at him, like 100 yards. It's not far. Man, what is wrong with people, man? It pissed me off.
And featured a composite sketch of what the shooter was believed to look like. The poster described him as a Hispanic male aged between 20 and 30 years old, standing at 5'10", and who was wearing a blood-hooded sweatshirt. Talking to a local news station, the leading detective on the case called Jason's murder a senseless killing. "There is no motive behind this," he added. "It's something I can't explain. I talk to the family. I meet with them on a regular basis, and there's nothing I can say that will help them understand this." According to one journalist, the LAPD have been exploring the idea that Jason was murdered as some kind of gang initiation, and that he was targeted at random by someone whose only goal was to prove themselves capable of taking a life. Others have suggested
That's not out of the realm of possibilities. Some gangs do that. You have to kill to get in. That way the gang has something over you and know that you'll do what they want you to do, probably. I don't know, I've never joined a gang. I don't see a point in killing anyone. Like, hey, go kill them. Why? So you can be in a gang. But why? What does killing them got to do with me joining your gang? Because they'll be dead. Are they your enemy? No. Okay. Let's go shoot people in the fucking face.
that his death may have been nothing more than a tragic hunting accident, with some novice hunter mistaking his movements as that of an animal's before opening fire.
Could have been.
And yet, ask most hunters, and they'll tell you that the chances of a shooter being so careless are slim to none. If their accuracy at range was anything to go on, they had enough experience to know that what they were firing on was a human, and so it seems malicious and
At 100 yards, yeah. If you can't tell you're shooting a fucking human at 100 yards, you don't need to be shooting. Well, unless you're at like 50 yards, then it's fine. Fuck it.
intent trumps the possibility of criminal negligence. But who would be possessed by such evil that they'd stalk the hilly trails of Greater Los Angeles with the goal of killing at random? Over the past year or so,
Well, he liked taking pictures and stuff. Maybe he took the pictures of some wrong shit. And maybe the right people found out about his wrong pictures of the wrong shit, which is their shit, and they're like, hey, ain't no fucking way he dies today. You know what I mean?
LAPD have poured time and resources into answering that exact question. But, frustratingly, they're no closer to identifying a suspect now than they were in the weeks following Jason's murder. At Jason's memorial service, his father described him as a dedicated, intelligent, free spirit who was loved by many people. He went on to say that, quote, his love for his family and friends transcended over everything. He always had a smile, and made light of every situation he was dealt. He will be missed. While Jason rests in peace, the hunt for his killer continues, and we may have to wait many, many years before a suspect is finally charged.
If we even know then.
But in the meantime, we can only hope that whoever wandered up into those hills that day, intent on extinguishing an innocent life, doesn't get the urge to do so again.
Like I said, maybe he took a picture that he wasn't supposed to fucking take. I mean, you see it happen all the time, and maybe he caught something. Maybe it was kind of a gang initiation thing, but there was kind of a reason behind it. Maybe he caught something, gang found out, and they're like, hey, you know something? You want in? Blood in. Go kill that fool. I could see that. I could see that. That's probably what fucking happened. I promise, oh, this is birdwatch. The fuck you was. It happens. I've watched movies. I've seen shit in my day. All right, I really enjoyed this. I like the three-story thing, Mr. Bones. Just like not as good as Mr. Bones. You know, progressively more messed up. These were all just messed up. I do enjoy the three stories. It gives you a decent video, and you don't feel Okay, now we're just kind of beating a dead horse with this video. Like, yeah, it could have ended a long time ago. I like that. I like that you get plenty of stories. You get to enjoy someone telling you the stories for a decent amount of time, but it's three different stories. I like them. I like them when Mr. Ballin does them. I believe even Mike has a three-story one, and I would like to check that out on that chapter. So, but we have some requests for that chapter coming up, so we'll get to it as we get to it. All right. Like I said, I really enjoyed today's video. If you enjoyed today's video as much as I did, please go down there, smack the like button around a little bit. If you're a fan of the spooky, scary, strange cold cases that just piss you off, hey, come on down. We'll get cold and pissed together. Ignore everything I say. I'm tired. It's been a long day. All right. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Man. The last one, it could have been like a blood in thing with a gain. I mean, they're not wrong. It could have been. He could just took the wrong picture of the right thing or the right picture of the wrong thing. However way you want to talk it, it don't matter. Hmm. I don't know. They all seem like someone close to them could have also been involved. I mean, cause think about what if maybe someone in his family was pissed at him, knew he was hiking there, went there, shot him, and just went on about it. I don't want to think about it. I will be like looking at everyone all shifty. Out. Where my black? What you up to over there? What'd you do? What'd you say? Where you been?